it's a goal. Who got the assist? Who got the assist?
Hello everyone, I hope you're all well. After a long time off, it's a flow of activities from us as we've gone from one pod in 12 days to 2 and 3. Yep, we're back for midweek for what was initially going to be the wildcard special, but since we've sort of already played them a week earlier than planned, it's made more a wildcard sort of retrospective. And yes, one of those pods where the games are very much still going on in the background. Sorry, I think my mic's gone. My mic's wrong, isn't it?
I was literally typing that in the private chat there, Tom. So very good call.
Again, I'm going to start that again for the audio, and peek behind the curtain for you all. Hello, everyone. Hope you're well. After a long while off, it's a flurry of activity from us here as we've gone from one pod in 12 days to 2 and 3. Back midweek, what was initially going to be a wildcard special. What did they say next? Yes, we've kind of sort of already played them, so we're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to do more of a wildcard retrospective, and yeah, it's one of those pods where games are going on in the background too. So we're not too sure what our scores are yet, or the state of our moods by the very end of it. Awkward for everyone, but yeah, neither of us in our 20s anymore, and neither of us are able to stay up and do the pod at 10:30, end at midnight, up till 3 a.m. editing and things like that. Those days are firmly in the past. Anyway, joined as always by Sam. How are you doing, mate? Dare I ask?
I mean, Salah hasn't murdered my rank yet, so at time of recording I'm all right, I suppose. But I think throughout the recording today, because we are recording this during the second half of the 7:45s, or the 7:45s, and then Salah will be kicking off his second half in about 10-15 minutes or so. It could be a bit of a brutal one to be doing live, so wish us luck as you travel through this pod. And if you know the results, which most of you will, you can enjoy our mood swings throughout. So yeah, have fun with that one. In the meantime, I'm still buoyant and I'm still optimistic. And we are Who Got the Assist. On today's pod, team updates as we stand. And of course, that will be very tentative because we've got a long way to go yet. We've both got Cole Palmer tomorrow, so we're not going to be finished even tonight either. And we're quite optimistic about Palmer at time of recording too. We'll do an update towards the end of the pod because our team's points will have changed by that point as well. And then, of course, we'll also be going through the Gameweek 31 preview in the meat of the pod. No knee-jerk this week. Instead, we'll focus more on the quick rundown of the wildcard teams and the different strategies we both arrived at. Quite similar, and I think a lot of us can relate to that through the community. But then also, how might that compare to this week's wildcard if you're going for Game Week 31, and any differences that may have come from the Game Week 30 midweek fixtures? I'm seeing a couple of injuries darting around, so I think there might be one or two changes. Best transfers in and out, of course, and that will be hinting at the wildcard stuff too, and some of the injuries I mentioned. And we're going to do a little section on assistant manager and the best picks for Game Week 31 through to 33 if you're looking at activating now. It's not going to be the most popular window of the season for assistant manager, but it'll probably be the second most popular. So we want to do that justice and go through some of the best picks there for anyone using it in 31 to 33. Bold claims and best captains, obviously, going to be fairly short at the end of the pods. We suspect that there might be a certain Swedish striker dominating the headlines for that one. Again, as long as he doesn't go off injured in the second half. And of course, finishing off with our teams for Game Week 31 as it stands. It is Wednesday, the 2nd of April. Fixtures going on in the background, as I've already mentioned. Goals flying in. I'm already seeing notifications on my phone. So whilst it's still relevant, how are our teams doing, Tom?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's not been great, has it really? At least to start with. I mean, I think we're reliant on what happens in the second half, honestly. And I think, instead of going through our teams in total, maybe just give a flavour, I suppose, of how it's going, just because, it's in progress.
Yeah, well, I suppose this is a good opportunity to do the in progress alongside maybe just how our team shaped up on a wild card. We both ended up on wild card, of course, for game week 30. Given the information on Haaland, I think both may be tipping us over the balance a little bit and getting that wild card active, as I'm sure a lot of you can relate to. I ended up with Raya in goal and Verbruggen on the bench as my second keeper. Raya obviously had the last minute clean sheet wipeout, so 2 points for him. Very frustrating. And I went double Arsenal defence. So Gabriel also going to be an issue. Injured in around the 15th, 20th minute. Meaning Kiwior would have gotten the clean sheet points if he had kept the clean sheet, but he didn't. Gabriel looks like a hamstring problem, so we'll be going through that later on. My other two starting defenders, Munoz and Gvardiol. Munoz definitely hasn't kept a clean sheet. Gvardiol is yet to be seen. In midfield, Murphy is coming off my bench with an assist so far. Cliver, I took a gamble on, knowing that he might not be ready for this game, but happy to have Murphy playing, so that's paid off. Sarr is currently blanking. Palmer tomorrow. Salah at the moment is blanking. But importantly, I'm hoping he doesn't get any returns tonight because I haven't captained him. I've gone for Mateta, as I briefly mentioned I think I mentioned it on this pod as well, but definitely in my videos during the week.
Yeah, you did.
Okay, good.
I think you said you were considering it. I think that,
yeah,
because you voice noted me, didn't you? And I'm getting that mixed up.
Yeah. That's the thing. I send you so many messages. We do get it a bit mixed up on pod versus WhatsApp. But currently, again, into the second half, Mateta is blanking. So his 40% EO is not getting me any gains as of yet. Marmoush and Isak up top, both getting a goal in the first half. Marmoush seemed to have a few problems here and there, and Foden was getting warmed up, but he stayed on long enough to score at least, so that's good news for me. It's pretty much a grey arrow so far. I think it's a very, very small green. That would turn into a monstrous red if Salah gets a return and Mateta doesn't. So it's all kind of by the by at the moment. That was more to just say how my wildcard shaped up. And obviously we'll go through it in a bit more detail later on.
Yeah, cool. All right. So all those players, I own them all. Not quite. I think we'll talk about it in a minute, but it's 12 out of 15 difference. I've got Foden, where you've got Kluivert. I've got Dunk, where you've got Milenkovic. You went with in the end, didn't you?
Yeah, I went Milenkovic. Yeah.
Who's rooted to your bench, and I've got Jose Sarr, where for my backup goalkeeper. And I'm basically on the same score as you. And I'm at the moment keeping a very close eye on what happens at the Man City game, because I mean, there's probably enough time for Foden to do something now, but my money's on, because I've got Murphy coming off the bench. My money is on a Foden 5-minute cameo, something ridiculous at the very end. But hey ho, I had just enough money to do that via basically going with Jose Sarr as my backup goalkeeper. It needed 0.1, so that's why I haven't got the Verbruggen or Sanchez, who probably made a bit more sense. Jose Sarr was in for a different reason, and he got a clean sheet this week. But yeah, I think the one kind of thing, the one sort of thing that I keep kind of coming back to, and it's also been referenced in the chat here right now, is that when you look at the team that I did have, I had Cal Hudson-Odoi and Kluivert, both who haven't shown this week. Kluivert was a bit more telegraphed. Cho, just out of nowhere, Hudson-Odoi didn't play for personal reasons, and also had Wood, Haaland and Hall injured. So it would have been a bit of a car crash no matter what, and I would have been kind of taking a -4. I probably would have taken a -8, let's be fair. So
yeah,
I don't think, so I had Trent initially, so I don't think that I've made a bad decision to wildcard. Bit frustrating with Foden, but hey, that's the way it goes. I feel, we'll get into it now, I suppose, about kind of how it all sort of looks. But the wildcard was quite similar across the board, wasn't it, Sam? And yeah, on screen on YouTube, you'll be able to see, and we'll talk through it. And I've just given reference to it, to be fair, exactly how similar they were, because it was pretty mad, kind of. Yeah, I mean, we were speaking during the week, and I think initially, during the week, in the day, I suppose we had to wildcard. And I think both our first thought was, oh yeah, bench boost 33, all of that. And then I think you earlier than me kind of just spotted the potential of bench boost 32, and I'd listened to James Planet and was kind of thinking about it and thinking about how it all fit together. And I messaged you just being like, oh, bench boost 32 actually looks a bit better, doesn't it? And you're like, for the love of God, Tom, will you please stop just finding things that I'm doing? But yeah, both of us sort of have set up for that, haven't we? And that's led to a very, very similar sort of setup, with the key difference being that I needed to find more money for Foden, which does seem to have all been folly in the end.
Yeah, well, folly for now, but again, it's early days. It might pay off. Before diving into this, I am aware that Mateta's gone off on the 59th minute. Don't worry, I know I'm going to be miserable. Let's just get that out of the way. It's done. Move on. Cool. We happy? Great. So on to the differences on our wild card. Yeah, they're minor differences. A lot of them kind of pick themselves. We had players with great data, players that were cheap that helped enable other players. So Salah was a lock for both of us. I don't think we even hesitated on that. And then we knew, I think both jointly, that we wanted to have a placeholder for Saka, knowing that the news came in that was positive that he would be back very soon. Obviously, we didn't know he'd be in the matchday squad at that point, but we knew that he was there or thereabouts. And come game week 33, he was going to be a good captaincy option. So obviously, Palmer came in as a placeholder there to move across to Saka. Neither of us were brave enough to go Saka from the off. Obviously, got the return off the bench, which was always possible. So fair play if you did go there. And there were a few nice cheap options to round off the team. 3 very telegraphed striker options that were popular. All 3 of which have got good effective ownership: Isak, Marmoush, and the unfortunate Mateta. And there was 1 or 2 others out there, but I think most people went with those 3. In the midfield, that, like you say, there's 1 or 2 differences there, but nothing too drastic. It was those edge pieces, the 5th midfielder mainly. I've gone Clivert, you've gone Foden. I would have gone Foden if I had the money, but I was like 1.7 million shy, and you have kept that money through the season somehow. So that's a big difference. And then in defense, it was that 5th defender, basically. I've gone Milenkovic. I just fancy that bullet header in game week 32, hopefully. And I also like the fixture in 36, when I'll definitely need to lean on him, or any Nottingham Forest defender when they've got Leicester at home and the potential, at least, of a double game week. Gabriel's gone off injured, but we both picked him. And that second keeper is much of a muchness. I've gone Verbruggen, you've gone Saar. There's not much in it. And that's very much vibes at that point. But a lot of us will end up on, or have ended up on, I would say, at least 10, but probably up to 12 or 13 of the same players on wildcard, haven't we?
Yeah, and even the edge pieces, I think, are going to... I think the edge pieces are going to be the things which dictate the difference almost, because a lot of the same players are going to be picked all round because of the 32, which is coming. If you wildcard in 31, you're still going to be looking at 3 Palace, 3 Newcastle, and that's incontrovertible. It just depends on how you kind of are looking to bench boost. If you're looking to bench boost in 32 or 33. And I think just to kind of give voice to that, because it's not dead yet, I think that people who are wildcarding now are still going to be thinking about it. I think the basically 32, and the main thing with 33 is that there's a lot of context surrounding the teams who are doubling in that game week. So you've got the FA Cup coming up on the weekend after that. You've got teams coming off European competition in some cases, and it just felt that the 32 bench boost, even though it was with single game week players, felt a bit more predictable and less likely, famous last words, less likely to lead to an absolute rotation disaster. So that's kind of why I decided to go that way. And yeah, you mentioned you got Milenkovic. I mean, I think that I could well end up removing Gabriel for Milenkovic in 32, I'm afraid, because it seems like quite a straightforward option. And again, Nottingham Forest defence has mullered my my effective ownership this week. So it's definitely something to bear in mind. Double game at first is also my birthday weekend. Not that it matters at all, but it might be something that kind of goes in there. But I did, Sam, realise, and this is kind of tantamount to kind of where we've ended up with this wild card, that I've got, apart from Murphy, who's currently on the field for me, but I very much doubt he's going to end up on there. I'm resigned to Pep. No, I know this is very, very much small violin for me, given what's happened to you. I'm very much resigned to Pep bringing on Foden to block those points. Apart from Murphy, basically, I don't have a single differential on my wildcards. It's quite frustrating. Like Duncan Livramento, but I'm pretty sure they're going to be picked up decently. Sarr, the goalkeeper, like Foden was my sole differential really on the wildcard. The rest of the team is so sort of achingly template, and I don't know. I can kind of see why people are a little bit sort of disgruntled with it. Like I feel like I posted on socials the other day that it's twice ever thus, I think, around this time when you're wildcarding with quite a straightforward sort of set of fixtures to come, like a bench boost that is going to come its way. I remember vividly when me and Lucy did that season together that things kind of fell into such a pattern that I think it's that game of 25 or 26, like everyone wildcarded to pretty much exactly the same team. And it was very, very sort of regimented moves throughout the year. But I do understand whether kind of the FA Cup dates being more ring fenced has created more kind of predictability, and also the strength of kind of content creator influence, of course, just informing people better, and FPL review and things like that as well. Maybe that's this is more heightened than ever before. I don't know. I'm hoping that from here there are going to be some switches in terms of double game when you're bench boosting, and also Gabriel replacements begin to pick away at this sort of thing. But hey, I mean, it has been quite. Yeah, it was really frustrating when I looked at live FPL when it all unlocked again, and I just saw that and I was like, oh well, yeah, all those gains. Yeah, okay, there are gains to be had, but they're not all 100% owned, but still. It did feel like, oh well, the capacity, like the ceiling for the gains that I'm going to get, at least on wildcard week, are going to be very limited.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I wish I stuck to FPL as a more of a casual player 5, 6, 7 years ago, where I'm not really trying to manage a side around double game weeks 3 or 4 weeks away, because it does telegraph moves a little bit, but it's kind of it's Pandora's box. Once you've opened it, you know about them. It's very difficult to go against players from Crystal Palace, for instance, or Newcastle, when you know the double game weeks are right there. So we were always going to have a more limited selection of players, I suppose, to pick from on a wild card, given that double game week season is upon us. And then I think the second thing that probably made these much more template is that Haaland was taken out of action. If Haaland was still an option on the wild card, we would have immediately seen a split through the community. Whether or not there are content creators out there, I don't think it would have made a difference, because some people would have kept Haaland or wanted Haaland on a wild card, and others would have gone with the other option, which was Marmoush. And obviously that's a 7 million plus difference. That changes the whole structure of the rest of the wild card and what you can do with that money. Without Haaland, a lot of us were kind of settled on the same structure. There's a very limited player pool of strikers to go for. As I mentioned, there was maybe 1 or 2 outsider options, like a João Pedro and an Evan Nilsson, who's just scored, by the way. Good options in their own right, but don't have the double game weeks to lean on, whereas Isak, Marmoush, Mateta all do. So it made sense to go for those 3 with Haaland out. And then you kind of work backwards from there. And having a Crystal Palace attacker made sense, if not 2, because of their fixtures and the fact that defensively the fixtures maybe didn't look too good. Newcastle made sense as a triple up. And then Salah, given the form he's in, wasn't going to be out of too many drafts. The one little kind of curveball that we were given was Saka potentially being close to being back. But even with that, Palmer's fixtures for the next 3 look really good. And then it was Saka's double. So even that seemed like a fairly not easy thing to time, but it made sense logically to maybe have Palmer for 3 weeks, then move to Saka when it was a bit safer. So yeah, unfortunately, we were dealt a fairly limited amount of options on the wild card. And I think Haaland being out of action didn't really help us at all. Even the defenders as well. I think 3 of them at least were in almost every single wildcard I saw. Gabriel, Gvardiol, and Munoz maybe a little bit less often if you went double Palace attack. But again, all 3 of which were incredibly popular. And then you're just looking at your bench defenders mainly, your Newcastle defender, and then another. I've gone Milenkovic, you've gone Dunk, but it's as she wrote, really. So yeah, I think we were limited with the options, and it has fallen that way. And hence why I because I'm chasing rank at 380, 390k, I felt like I needed to do something different. I didn't want to take a chance on going against any of the major assets to own because I felt that they all were very good to own. So I went with captain, and that's not paid off either. So screw risk taking. Let's just play it template for the rest of the season.
Yeah, it's I feel like kind of this little period up until game week 34 is going to be a bit like that. And it feels like this year in general has been a little bit of like death by 1,000 cuts plus one sucker punch from Chris Wood or the Forest defense, like the whole time. You do get years like this, honestly. And I think it's just a case of like, if you've started well, you kind of seem to kind of stay doing well, and it's very difficult to push through. We've had many weeks, haven't we, where we've done all right, but every other kind of high-owned player seems to have scored. And I do think that kind of 35 to 38 is going to be more interesting in some ways, just because, just due to the state of the league almost, that you're going to have lots of teams who are going to be kind of done, and there'll be kind of a few areas of kind of real interest, but a lot of the teams are going to be done. So I wonder whether that might be a bit of a crapshoot, especially with everything else that's going on. But yeah, I agree with you there that it's definitely been a difficult season from that perspective. And it's it doesn't seem to have really kind of pushed through on the wild card either. One thing I would mention in terms of the wild card is that the Cliver as well, being framed as a doubt very late on, does seem to have also tipped the balance for a few people, including me, which is why Foden came in at the last minute, which I'm still sort of slightly ruining. But hey, there we go. And the injuries as well are very hard to legislate for, aren't they? I mean, we'll talk about Gabriel in a minute, but stuff like that happening. Isaac apparently pulled up before he came off. So, yeah, another one potentially to put on the list. Yeah,
that's
so
great.
Yeah, it's definitely like welcome back to FPL, everybody. Yeah, if you are doing well this week, if you didn't wildcard until this week coming, so 31. Like you've probably still got like Sabumo who scored a penalty. You've probably still kind of got a few players hanging around who have done all right for you this week and have been important differentials out of nowhere, really, versus those who have wildcarded. But in terms of 31 versus 30, in terms of the wildcard sort of setup, we've kind of had a look at where we were with these players and where we might go in 31. And I don't know, Sam, it does feel quite like you're still fishing in the same pool pretty broadly, depending on strategy. Players who we've mentioned, like Kluivert, Foden, Milenkovic, Dunk, Verbruggen, all these sorts of guys. Depends on if you're bench boosting, if you are bench boosting indeed, in 32 or 33. And if you're assistant managering, then you can kind of probably use a similar team. And then if you're assistant managing 32, 33, and 34 for some reason, then maybe that would be all right. But yeah, it does look pretty similar, doesn't it? Depending, no matter when you're kind of wildcarding. Maybe the fact you won't be including Gabriel means you've got more money, which means you might look at getting a Trippier instead of a Livramento. Maybe you'd be looking at almost definitely be getting Saka in now, and players like Kluivert, players like Foden, because they haven't played this week just gone. Maybe be looking at them and thinking, nah, I'm not going to include those guys.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's a big reason why a lot of us chose to wildcard in game week 30, because knowing the FA Cup fixtures that did go in and or the way they actually resulted, then it kind of telegraphed when the doubles might fall. We still haven't had confirmation. We might get it before game week 31. And then if there's any surprises there, that might shift the balance of the wild card altogether. But at time of recording, at least, it seems very likely that we're going to get the same structure that we predicted in game week 30. And obviously that incorporates all of the same teams doubling. And the reason that a lot of us went early was because those teams that doubled and would be appealing in 31 also happened to be appealing in game week 30 itself because of the fixtures. Crystal Palace had Southampton, Newcastle had Brentford, Arsenal didn't have a terrible fixture either, for instance. So there were reasons, which is probably why anyone making wildcards in game week 31 won't look too different to game week 30. The key advantage for anyone doing that, though, is that you've got more information. You've got live information on injuries. You've seen that Saka's back playing. That's a huge benefit on a wild card. Gabriel looks like he's crocked and probably out for a little while, although we don't know that just yet. So you probably save a bit of money on Gabriel, and maybe that gives you an extra million to use elsewhere. And again, that's a benefit. So information is the key thing and the key benefit for wildcard 31. So far, it's mainly around those Arsenal boys that you might be twisting a little bit, and maybe some of the most of the edge pieces stay relatively similar, but we still have a couple of days to go before you lock in that wild card, and we could get more information. We could get even now at time of recording, Isak, like you said, might have pulled up. Maybe that's an injury, and maybe that's a complete change to the wild card draft. Maybe instead of an Isak, you're looking at a Evan Nilsson or a João Pedro, and it changes the strategy and where you can use other money. So that's the advantage of wildcard 31. It's in that what we couldn't have possibly known because the games weren't played yet information. And right now there's maybe 2 or 3 changes, but by the time you actually get to game week 31, it might be 5 or 6. And that in itself could be a huge advantage to you for the rest of the season.
I'm slightly, Bob, but I'm very jealous of people who would have who are able to feel a decent team this week and kind of get on with it. I just come back to what I said earlier on about having 5 players missing and having to take a -8. Like,
oh yeah, you had to.
It's not been great. I'm going to fully hold my hands up and accept that, but it's again, I do kind of feel like it was vaguely necessary as well, to be fair. So horses for courses, all these sorts of things. I'm not going to wax lyrical and defend the state of FPL at this very moment if you are wildcarding, because it is just the case that is going to be the way. The key differentials do seem to be double game week, which bench boost week you're going to be doing, and I think you're triple captaining potentially in 33 as well, which has a bearing. And then when you're free hitting for both of us, I think that kind of landed as being a fairly straightforward 34. But yeah, it's not. Yeah, it doesn't seem like there's not much variety, and not giving us much spice of life at the moment, really, for FPL managers, is there? Unfortunately.
No, that is the problem. I think chip strategy is pretty telegraphed now. If the doubles and blanks fall the way that we think they will, which it seems pretty likely. So yeah, it does look like a bench boost 32 or 33. Some people went with that alternate strategy, but I think it's much of a muchness. Like if you're bench boosting 32, you're probably triple captaining someone like a Saka in 33, possibly an Aston Villa player. Or if you're switching that and you're bench boosting 33, then you're probably triple captaining Isak. So again, I don't really see either one of those two strategies being massively better than the other one, and it's still within the same structure of wildcarding around now and free hitting in 34 and being set up either side of that 34 blank game week. So there will be minor differences there, but the strategy is fairly well documented, and we might get a small double and blank in 36, 37, but free transfers should just about sort you out there, because we're looking at a maximum of 4 teams moving, possibly even less than that. So yeah, it doesn't seem too exciting. There won't be those huge gains to be made, because I think a lot of us at this point will have maximized for the bigger doubles, or at least the doubles in game week 32 and 33. And then we'll probably be sailing through the back end of the season after free hit. So if you've got another strategy, I know there are those of you out there maybe wildcarding after 34 and dead ending into that. That could work out really nicely as a bit of a differential in itself. And if you can just hold on to anyone's coattails in the next 2 or 3 weeks, then you might be sitting pretty at the back end. But for now, it does seem like most of us, a bit like 2 seasons ago, like you mentioned with Lucy, I think we're all on a pretty similar strategy. I think something like 70 or 75% of the content creators league or something might have wildcarded this week. So that just documents, I think, how popular this route has ended up being.
Yeah, it just tells you all you need to know, doesn't it, really? I think, if you are wildcarding this week, I think, the key difference would be obviously no Gabriel. Maybe, as I said, you'd be just throwing Saka straight in, not bothering with someone like a Foden, which makes a lot of sense. Maybe as well, I don't know, but you'd have all that money, extra money to spend. So yeah, there'll be maybe a few sort of little bits and pieces that you kind of move around, a few edge pieces you kind of shuffle, and that depends on when you're bench boosting. But it does feel like broadly it's still very very similar, it's sort of strategizing, unfortunately, and them's the breaks really at this time of the year. Just accepts it. You're playing FPL. This can happen in the modern game, sadly. The days of the tricky wing is over, Sam. What we do now is we turn around and pass back if we're about to lose possession. We don't run to the byline anymore and try to get the cross in. Right. Best transfers this week, I think, is probably two parts. So Gabriel, Saka, how essential is he? And assistant manager. Now, we were about to say the assistant manager, well, before tonight's games, we were going to say that, you've got a great choice. You've got a great kind of place here, really, with just potentially putting on Glasner for the next few weeks. But Villa and Brighton have shifted the script, haven't they, really, Sam? It's not looking as good. It looks like you're relying on a Graham Potter masterclass in Gameweek 31.
Interesting one, that. Yeah, I think with Glasner, he is the tempting one to use it on, because we've already seen luck and joy from it earlier on for those of us who used it on him in, I can't remember what game week it was now, 26 maybe, possibly 25. And obviously with Palace being in, at least until tonight, against the mighty Saints, being in red hot form and climbing up the league pretty quickly, you're always looking for that team that's underperformed the first half of the season and can wipe a few table bonuses in the back end. So yeah, Palace would have been on offer. Doesn't look as likely now. Obviously, you're looking for that masterclass. I haven't done all of the maths on that, so I'll take your word for it. But outside of that, you're probably looking at one of the other assistant managers that might be doubling. There's not really a ton of lucky ones out there, especially Emery winning tonight. I'm not sure how much that shifts things, but
it does. I think it takes Forest out of the out of the table bonus as well. Yeah, so
even that's less tempting.
So Glasner's gone, as has Emery. It's Potter versus Bournemouth, which I think would actually not be that bad, to be honest. I mean, to be fair, Bournemouth have
right now
looked a bit. They do look a bit spent, don't they? At the moment. I mean, obviously we've not seen the game because we're in the UK and we've been recording, but by the looks of it, was just giving them a right good game. Looks like the goalkeeper Alex Palmer has made quite a few saves, but they've given them a right good game. And Bournemouth have, as we said last week, just the momentum seems to have been checked a little bit. So I think that could be all right. And then 32, and assuming again we haven't, I'm sure by the time this pod goes out immediately, we'll all know double game weeks, and this would be completely irrelevant. But if that 33 double does occur, then it's fair to say that after donating some points to Southampton, it seems tonight, Glasner should be quite a good pick for 32 and 33, and you've got to hope you spike some variance really through that. The Man City game and the Newcastle game.
Saves you a transfer as well, which at this point in the season is helpful. I mean, I think we both used 2 transfers to move across our AMs earlier on, and it did pay off, but it would be nice to have had that extra transfer or 2 to use on players, because they keep going down injured every 5 minutes, as it seems right now. So yeah, those transfers will be precious. We've only got a very limited amount of them for the rest of the season. So if you can land on a manager that doesn't require a transfer week to week, then that's going to be quite big. Emery, obviously having Southampton, then potentially the double could be an option, but Glasner with double, if he can get 1 win from either one of those doubles, then you're looking pretty good. But given the form they're in currently against Southampton away from home, I don't know. Could it be turning a little bit? I don't know. I think for what it's worth, it's a bit of a blip. I don't know what's going on there. And I'm sure in the next 10 minutes or so, I'll be a very unhappy Saints fan once more. But Glasner would have been my pick going into tonight, and it saves a transfer. But maybe Potter. I'm not loving it though. I have to say, like, West Ham don't fill me with confidence even against Bournemouth.
It really feels like one of those, doesn't it, where you just punt it, and without any sense of certainty, you just punt it. You could have you could bet on them. Brentford and Chelsea, they're quite good. There's a fairly acrimonious relationship there, I believe. I don't know how true that is, but that could be one you might consider.
Mm.
But it's not great, is it really? Well, we had that as well, didn't we? With in the final week of our assistant manager in 26, I'm going to say.
Yeah, I think it was
when it was like McKenna versus Spurs, and then Glasner away versus Fulham, and kind of we just got the rub of the green there, really. And I think that's just kind of how you got to approach that. It's a shame that obviously Villa and Glasner are off the table, but yeah, you got to roll with the punches. And as you said last week, Sam, the assistant manager is such a powerful chip that if you've still got it to use, this does, assuming we get the 33 announcement, this does seem the time to be using it. But I suppose there is a fairly decent line of thought that maybe we're not sure enough about 33 yet, and maybe that if we don't have that by the deadline, which sounds from people who are cleverer than me, such as James Planet, very, very unlikely. But if that does manifest, if that does come to pass, then maybe you would be thinking, okay, let's just go with the bench boost then in 32 or 33 and save assistant manager for later on. And hope one of those kind of 36 doubles does come to pass. That does seem to be another way of doing it. But again, there is you have the same problems, don't you?
Yeah, either way, you're fighting the same battles just at a different time. I guess the one benefit of doing it later is at least you'll have the certainty, because you will know when activating it, the double will be almost straight away. So you'll have full information on who's doubling for sure, and probably much more likely where the table bonus is going to lie and which teams have any motivation as well. So whether or not they're fighting for anything will be a big factor come that point in the season. So you might be able to have a more confident punt on one of the lower managers fighting. Although I have to say, it doesn't look like we're going to have much of a relegation battle. So maybe there won't be that much scrapping towards the back end of the season for those teams in the bottom few places in the table. But maybe you can find someone around 10th, 11th, 12th that is close enough to top our finish. Maybe that'll be a big deal for them, and maybe there's a team at the 6th, 7th not really going anywhere at that point. So I don't know. It seems unlikely that we're going to get any big swings in 36, 37, 38 on AM, but there might be one or two, and at least you'll have full confidence in what the doubles will be.
Yeah, you can't know that at the moment, does it really? All right, so let's go for best transfers then this week in terms of players, and let's do Gabriel first. So if you don't have a wild card, it's probably the first port of call. Actually, no, I think this probably covers if you don't and if you do. So probably the first thing to do probably might be just to roll it this week and see what happens really with Gabriel. I think it's very, very unlikely he's going to play this week. I wouldn't be surprised if he's gone for the season, because it did look like a straightforward, if you kind of watch the incident, it did look like a really straightforward case of, yeah, okay, that's hamstring, and that's going to be 6-7 weeks gone, and that's going to take us up to the end of the year. But there is kind of a case to just kind of roll it and see what happens, because there's such a short turnaround between this game week and the next, that I'm sure that you can probably play somebody, but there's almost definitely going to be a lot of people who are just like, I haven't got anybody. And there's quite a lot to kind of look at, I suppose, in the short term. I mean, the first thing you possibly do is look at an Arsenal defender to bring in. And I think that that's going to have to be Saliba, right? But Saliba rose in price overnight. So if you're able to do that, fair enough. You're not exactly buying a thrilling player, but as we noted last week, Gabriel has hardly been thrilling for quite a while. Other than that, I mean, are you going to be buying a Kiwior? I would be kind of saying, oh, Ben White is tickling my cockles right now, but he wasn't in the squad last night because he had some sort of, he again felt a bit discomfort during the initial sort of preparation. So. I know it kind of feels like maybe without Gabriel and Timber as well, who I probably should mention here, was carrying an injury, lost for the 70th minute or so, and then got taken off. And I feel like he's going to be basically wrapped in cotton wool for the Real Madrid games.
Yeah,
and it almost feels like without Gabriel and potentially without Timber as well, that Arsenal's defence does kind of go down a grade in terms of our estimation. And you should be probably maybe looking elsewhere, right, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, you can look elsewhere. I guess Nottingham Forest is probably an interesting one, potentially Brighton, although they're losing 2-0 at home tonight against Villa. It depends on what your strategy is for bench boost, really, because with the bench boost in mind, you could look at maybe a West Ham player. If you're looking at bench boosting 33, although they don't have a double, they've got a nice single against Southampton. Or if you want to go on the other side of it and bench boost 32, then Nottingham Forest is much more appealing. Saliba is boring and it doesn't fill me with excitement, and maybe it's narrowing of the options sort of just leaves him there on the table. But if Gabriel is out, and if Timber is out as well, potentially, then they don't really have a lot of other players to aim for in the box if they're putting in corners. And now Saka's back, I expect some very good corner routines and some better delivery on the set pieces. So if Saliba's the target man, then you might luck out on something. So clean sheet threat goes down a grade, but his particular attacking threat might go up just a tiny little nudge because it's been nowhere this season. He's had no attacking threat. But if Gabriel is out, then they're going to have to focus on someone else with the crosses. So Saliba maybe up a notch. But if you don't already have one, then I think Nottingham Forest probably makes a lot of sense at this point.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that that seems like that's a very kind of obvious, straightforward answer. The only other thing I could possibly venture to you is if you are looking to bench boost in 32, then someone like a Correa could be worth a look.
Reece James, get Reece James in.
Oh, God, are we confident? With all due respect to Reece James, of course.
No.
Are we confident Reece James is going to be fit on the 13th of April?
No, definitely not.
It's a bit boring, isn't it? But bringing in somebody like a Cole Will could do that job for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that it's cut and dried. I probably going to be looking at bringing in a Forest player for him going forward. And I think that, without Gabriel, we can see. So that's why I said initially kind of roll, because we're able to have a look at what's going on with how Arsenal's setting up. I mean, it could be that Kiwior does become a 4.8 million hero for the end of the year. I mean, that could be quite good for all sorts of reasons. Arsenal is still a very solid defence. It's just without Gabriel, and potentially, if Timber is injured as well, which information we don't have at the moment. I think Gabriel almost definitely will be. Timber was able to carry on, but we know that he did have a very horrible injury last year, so maybe they're going to be careful with him, especially surrounding what happens in terms of the Champions League. So yeah, maybe that's one to kind of keep an eye on. I think our kind of word at the moment is just to kind of leave it be. A good point by Dan in the chat actually is that maybe Canate, if you were going to bench boost in 33, might be a good option.
I don't think 32 is that bad either, is it? Is it West Ham?
It is West Ham, yeah.
Yeah, that's not too bad either. So yeah, their defensive data is good. Great shout. Yeah, I like that a lot.
So yeah, there we go. Right, Saka then. Let's move on to Saka. So I think that he didn't start, and I think both of us did look at him versus Palmer, and the feeling. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Sam, but I think that the feeling behind going with Palmer over Saka was okay. It's very good for Palmer. Okay, yeah, we know the data's been great, and we know that he has been underperforming, etc., etc. We get that, but Palmer has now got Jackson back, and I think that the next 3 games, Spurs at home, Brentford away, and Ipswich at home, those 3 games were very good. And it became like an easy sort of swap out in 33 to a Foden or Saka kind of later. And we needed to see what was going on with Saka. But when he came on and when he played, it was really clear to see how he elevated the rest of the team. That he is kind of our best player in lots of different ways. And I think that it kind of is telling in an FPL sense that he was still the top scoring midfielder for Arsenal, despite the fact that he'd been injured for so long, which kind of, again, tells its own story really about how like Trossard failed to grasp the nettle when he was away. But yeah, I think that, if you're on Gameweek 31 wildcard, that he is nailed on to come in for you at this juncture. It may be that tomorrow that we sat here at this point tomorrow, and Palmer's gone off and scored 2 goals and says, "Please, may that be so, Cole. Come on, please." But it may be that, and maybe people pivot away from Saka. I mean, he's nailed on for both of us to come in 33, isn't he? I think that's kind of something for later. But yeah, Game of 31 wildcard, Sam, and just generally, if you're looking to buy, maybe you're kind of just thinking if Palmer does kind of continue on his kind of dark path tomorrow and blanks again, what would your view be? Is it just time to screw it, just get the star boy in?
I'm going to be controversial here. I'm going to say no. The reason for that is he got 30 minutes last night. Maybe was it slightly less than that? It was around half an hour. The Real Madrid game is massive for Arsenal. And I do just wonder if they're going to build him up a little bit. He might start. And if he does, I'd be surprised if he gets more than 65. That's more than enough time for him, by the way. But I still prefer 90 of Palmer. So as long as Palmer gets through tomorrow unscathed, I still think I prefer him for 2 weeks. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see on Palmer tomorrow. For the time being, look, I love Saka. I would like him. But I think because he's been out for a little while, I made a note at the start of the season. I think it was in I don't know whether it was one of my top 10 or 5 tips or lessons from last year or not. It nearly made it in if it didn't, was to not bring in players straight after a long injury because they take a little while to get cooking again and to get the minutes they deserve.
You were saying that in the preseason pod we did about kind of the things we were going to do.
That's exactly it. And I think it was in reference to Haaland last season, but Saka is obviously, look, he's come off the bench and he scored straight away and he looked good, but they've got such a big couple of games coming and Nwaneri's not been playing badly. So I think he'll probably start in game week 31, but if he does, I doubt it's 90 and I doubt it's anywhere near 90. Again, feel free to disagree because look, at the end of the day, I'm getting plenty of calls wrong this season, but my gut is that I would probably still hold off and go for Palmer. He's got the penalties, he's got the data, and he's got 2 good fixtures. So let's see how he goes tomorrow night. If he goes off injured or he looks absolutely awful again, then fine, go with Saka and save yourself the transfer. But I think if you can map it out so you can get to Saka by 33, then that might be my play personally, just because of the Real Madrid stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I to kind of just set you up to agree with you there, really. I mean, let's bear in mind that the Everton game is, 3 days before the first leg of Arsenal Real Madrid. I mean, I think you're looking kind of 60 minutes, maybe. I think that if he does start, which could be fine for him, but there's serious question marks, especially because Arteta's going to want him kind of full pelting for as many minutes as possible. Serious question marks again about him for the Brentford game with the Real Madrid. Okay, so it's kind of Saturday to Wednesday, so maybe you'll probably be all right. But I don't know. I think kind of the alternative is, as you said, having Palmer for Brentford's, who have been kind of middling defensively at home, needling kind of Derby, Jackson back, hoping this all kind of comes together tomorrow, of course. And then you've got an Ipswich game for Palmer on the weekend of the 12th. So I think that probably does, to me, and it's easy for me to say because I obviously own Palmer and Saka, that would be the way that I go. But the 0.6 million price difference of your wildcard in this week could be quite big for a lot of people. So I completely appreciate why you might just think, Saka is Saka, which again, something I'm not going to argue with. And maybe you might be looking at getting him in, but it might be worth kind of just thinking about a bit of a plan, especially if you've got some free transfers that you're rolling into your wild card. A bit of a plan to just kind of grab him after that Real Madrid kind of second leg on the 16th, because the Ipswich probably, and Ipswich and Palace is the double if that kind of does manifest itself, I think, and that is just such a good double, and that's kind of where your captaincy is going to be played, and for you, Sam, that'll be where your triple captaincy potentially is going to be played as well, I hear. So yeah, I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, again, if something happens in the Real Madrid games that makes him a non-option for whatever reason or a minute's risk, then I could play it later on in the season if I really, really had to. But ideally, I want Saka for game week 33. It's a booked-in transfer, which I don't love making, booked-in transfers on a wild card, but I think it was necessary, pardon me, this time. So yeah, look, he's a fantastic player. I absolutely love him, and I actually forgot how much I loved him. When he came back and he was on the pitch, I instantly was like, oh man, yeah, he's levels above anything I've seen. Like, he's so good. I remember going down to the Emirates, I think it was for the Leicester game earlier this season, and watching him live. He is just a sensational player, off the ball, on the ball. He's so intelligent. So I do want him back very soon. But because he's that good, I think they will wrap him up a little bit and make sure that he's perfect for the Real Madrid games. So I want to go in afterwards. But look, if you're a braver manager than me, it's already paid off this week. So fair play. It could pay off again in game week 32 and 31 and 32.
Yeah, the vast majority of the transfer market would agree with you, Sam. So it's over 170,000 transfers in for Palmer. Sorry, for Saka, and Palmer, Cliver. No, I'm assuming mostly Palmer again being the victim of sales. Isaac, Marmoush, both been brought in, makes a lot of sense. Saliba, due to that attributable to that price rise, has been brought in by 50,000. I'm assuming that's a lot of people selling Gabriel for him. And Mateta has been brought in by 40,000 already. I assume that's before the results today. And Milenkovic, again, gathering pace. So I think a lot of people are going to be going from Gabriel to the likes of Milenkovic. But yeah, I feel like, linking back to what we were saying about wildcards, this does seem a bit of a time frame where we're going to be sat there thinking, all right, how am I going to optimize for 32 and 33? If you're not on wildcards and if you're thinking about bench boost, that's going to be exactly the same case. So you've got a lot of money sloshing around, but unfortunately, the options that you have to spend that money do seem a bit limited, which is a bit sad. But I think that's just the nature of things right now. But hey, Sam, Foden didn't come on, so I've got Murphy as well. Hooray! It's a small win.
Nice.
Terrible for everybody involved. Right. Okay. I think that's everything covered, isn't it? Anything else to bring up on best for transfers?
I think so for now. Any quick knee jerks on if Isaac is indeed injured?
No, I haven't seen anything. It's just he the athletic guy said that he pulled. I think it's Chris Waugh said that he pulled up before he got taken off.
Okay,
but
just one to keep an eye out for then, I guess.
Hal wasn't concerned, so it didn't look concerned. So I think it's probably nothing.
Okay, cool. So we've gone through half the pod like saying Isaac might be injured.
Oh, that's the nature of these, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so hopefully all good. Fingers crossed. So yeah, you've got your reward if you've listened this far in and not cut off halfway through the show. Yeah, but I think in terms of transfers, that's all she wrote right now. I think obviously more information will probably come to light tomorrow evening with Chelsea Spurs, but for the time being, it's mainly on those Arsenal boys and assistant manager movements, which we've already gone through.
Yep. Okay. Perfect. Bold claims.
Yeah. So I haven't won this one, but I was damn close. Nketiah to outscore Mateta. I think that's 1 point apiece, which doesn't fill me with joy. It was a bit of a happiness hedge, and I've not edged any happiness at all. So I've gotten 1 point out of Mateta as a captain, and Nketiah hasn't outscored him. So just an absolute loss all round. No one's better off for it. Why do I even bother, Tom?
Oh, I know. And it's not as if Saints could even celebrate.
No, we didn't even win.
I know, because you've got a pointless FPL goal, Franca goal, Lerma assist. What I want to know, Sam, is why us content creators did not pick up, and his friend the Pod James FPL said, on the likes of Broadheads. Like, why weren't we signposting him as a must-own? Why weren't we pushing the case for Toolport on Noachi? It's just a dereliction of duty from us, honestly.
They'll be on my thumbnails this week.
Yeah, I think they're must-buys from now on.
For sure.
Oh, dear me, it's been welcome back.
A rough one.
Welcome back to FPL. No, I'm still enthusiastic about it. Just about. Marmoush blank for Leicester was mine. Just because that was initially going to be a blank. That was initially the Haaland blank, and I just swapped it at the last minute, basically. Would have thought about something else a bit more, but yeah. Again, our hit rate continues to decline. I think we're in kind of the 16% rather than 17% actually now. But hey, let's hope we can change it this week.
It's all going really well. So I'm going for both Liverpool and Arsenal to drop points in game week 31. I think it Everton and Fulham for them respectively. So yeah, again, not a very fancy Premier League relevant one, but I'm going for them both to drop points this weekend.
Fair enough. And I'm going to go for 5+ goals in Spurs versus Saints. 2 absolutely woeful defences and 2 attacks that, well, Spurs can score a lot of goals. Can Saints score a lot of goals? Well, I mean, if
We
they're
can
playing
score a goal.
yes, you can score a goal, especially
That's
if
good. So that's 4 to go. Spurs
exactly.
only need 4.
If there's a defence up against them, which again has been made of biscuits, then I think maybe we'll be in for a bit of a goal fest there. I wouldn't be surprised if that's one of those games which is just off the radar in terms of how it does kind of transpire. But yeah, that did feel like the one I was looking for the fixtures, thinking I haven't done the fixtures one for a while. I'll go for that one. Right,
Yeah.
best captains this week. Let's just assume Isaac is fit for scenario 1.
We have to at this point, I think.
Dick Isaac, done, finished.
I mean,
If it's-
Leicester are that bad, right? They're
Yeah.
they're just so bad that it beats going for like a Salah. I think, even though
Yeah.
Salah is again pretty inevitable. Yeah, is it that simple, Tom?
If Isaac is not fit, then it is not that simple. If he
No.
is fit, then it is that simple. That is
Okay.
the end of the road. IM 974 said, if Isaac is out, I'd love to be able to have the annual Callum Wilson punt. I mean, you've got good memories of that from a couple of years ago, I remember. Couple of years the years have not been kind to Callum Wilson in terms of his overall fitness. So I would wonder about that, especially with all the fixtures coming in quick succession. I wouldn't be surprised if you see a game or two with Anthony Gordon playing as the 9.
Same. Yeah.
If we let's consider that just to cover ourselves off in case people are listening to tomorrow again. Well, come on, Isak's gone. He's done for the season. What else would we be saying? Well, would default to Salah or Marmoush, maybe. So the Egyptian duo, Marmoush, stuttering Man United, or a Salah against as kind of a safe pick. We hasn't done anything tonight. I don't think he's had a really bad game actually tonight. He had one shot, which was a header in the first half, but it's been very, very quiet this evening. But yeah, Salah's always kind of okay, and Fulham do seem to, again, they've had a bit of a quiet period after being quite strong for quite a while. So either of them probably are your best options. I'm assuming that most people do own or are looking to own Marmoush at some point going forward. And I don't think tonight's performance is going to have dulled those interests at all, really. There's an XGI of 1.62.
Yeah, very good.
Leicester end up as he and Savinho going very well together. And a lot of points dodging seems to have occurred. So it seems to have taken up the Haaland mantle with gusto, the ex-Frankfurt man.
Yeah, I like Marmoush. And until now, the argument against him was the data wasn't looking too great or too special. Well, he's balanced it out a little bit tonight. So it's now looking pretty mean, pretty okay. So yeah, against Man United, that seems like a pretty good way to go against Salah if you wanted to do so again. And of course, Isak wasn't available for whatever reason. I think if I was tier listing them, it would be Isak on top. If he's out, then it probably goes to Salah, maybe marginally ahead of Marmoush, mainly because Fulham haven't looked in too hot a form in the last couple of games since the international break in particular. So I don't mind that. And I think if you're trying to differentiate them, yeah, the Egyptian prince rather than the Egyptian king might make sense.
Well, I like
should have penalties. And yeah, like you say, Man United, it's a big derby game. They're gonna be right up for it, and they need to win every single game to make sure that they get the top 5 and Champions League. So Marmoush is going to be bang up for it. And I think he should be on free kicks as well, I think. So yeah, not a bad way to go against Salah if you wanted to.
Yeah, he was very good at free kicks at Frankfurt, and he was penalties at Frankfurt. Took it over from Ekatike, and was pretty deadly from the spot. A bit like his fellow countryman. His father, that'd be the king to the prince, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he's just genuinely a very good option, honestly. So our team and plans for the week ahead. It's been a bit of a sobering reality, hasn't it? Really, in terms of how this week has gone, and a lot of it, just to sum up where we are in terms of points, is heavily reliant on Mr. Cole Palmer deciding to show up tomorrow, because that would be very nice, wouldn't it, for both of us? I mean, we both need like a double-digit haul. The safety score is I'm a 42 for the safety score in overall, and I need another 6 points. So, hey, Palmer, a goal would be nice, and frankly, 4 would be lovely. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I think I need about 4 goals to make up to a grey arrow, let alone a green. On a wild card's not a great feeling. So I think I'm 35 net. I'm just going through live FPL at the moment. It looks like it's 35, down to 450k. Another 70k drop on a wild card is fantastic. And yeah, Cole Palmer could probably resuscitate that a little bit if I'm very, very lucky, but it's not looking fantastic. For next week, though, because there's always hope next week, currently looking pretty decent, I think, as you would hope after a wild card. Obviously, Gabriel, I've kind of put last on my bench, just assuming he's out. And I really don't mind bringing in Livramento away at Leicester, who just seem incapable of scoring. So yeah, Livramento seems decent. Starting with Raya in goal, Munoz and Gavardio next to Livramento. In midfield, I've currently got Kluivert starting away at West Ham, but given he wasn't in the squad, then it could be Murphy away at Leicester. And actually, that's a debate that I wanted to bring forward to you, is should I start Murphy ahead of either Kluivert or Sarr, potentially at home to Brighton? Palmer and Salah obviously round off the midfield, both away, Brentford and Fulham respectively. And up top, Isak, Marmoush and Mateta, like everyone on a wild card, or seemingly everyone. So my big question is, Murphy and Milenkovic on the bench away at Leicester and away at Aston Villa. Would you start them ahead of any of these players?
I'd leave Milenkovic. God, I've been doing this all season, son.
Exactly.
No, don't listen to me. Put Milenkovic on for Munoz and play Murphy over one of Sarr or Kluivert. Do that. Just don't listen to me. My instinct would be to play Munoz and bench Milenkovic, but we've been doing this all year, haven't we? Villa have just rampaged 3-0 against Brighton, so
yeah,
you just don't know, do we really? But yeah, it's I'd be kind of tempted to just to probably play Munoz in that game and hope that Brighton have kind of hit another blip, but hope that this is a bit of a one of those for one of those moments for Palace. And hope
they're
the wind
usually
does come out
cagey, those
themselves.
games as well, aren't they? They're usually fairly cagey. I remember quite a lot of like 1-alls. Again, it's one of those derbies that neither team likes to play too expansively in, to my memory.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can see bench points. But you expect that because I'm setting up for a bench boost. As Tom, are you? So shall we have a look?
Yeah, let's do that. The problem is that I've got Foden, who didn't come on at all tonight, and I've also got Gabriel. So I think that I need 2 transfers to properly get rid of those 2 before bench boosting in 32. The rest of the team's looking all right for this week ahead. So yeah, Raya in goal, Livramento on the pitch, same as you. Guardiola, Munoz. I haven't got a Munoz versus Dunk issue. I'm going to play Munoz every time. Murphy and Sarr both, I think, player for Foden, because I've got no assurance whatsoever about Foden's minutes. Palmer and Salah, and Isak, Marmoush and Mateta up front. I think that's fairly good. So I'm not really too worried about any of that. The only kind of thing that could happen, obviously, is if Isak's injured as well, then I'm already kind of straight away making a transfer after the wild card, which isn't great, because I don't want to be fielding Foden now with all of this. I'm happy if he comes off the bench, fine, or if he does play against Man United, it's going to be like one of those where I'm kind of like, well, hey, I think I've had enough information with him not playing this game to just be like, well, Murphy and Sarr probably are likely to be playing both their games. Murphy with a good game, Sarr with an okay game, even though it's quite cagey. I want to roll it and just kind of get to game week 32, and I'm intending to bench boost and kind of sort things out then with a short turnaround as well. Maybe some information, some smoking guns going to come in where Pep says, it was unfortunate I couldn't play Phil. He's been so good in training. So he's definitely going to get a game in the derby, but Savini's been playing well. Grealish seems to have played very well tonight, by all accounts. So yeah, it does feel that way, and it obviously is one of those things that I couldn't have known without what's happened this weekend, this midweek. But obviously, if I could go back in time and do it again, then obviously I wouldn't have Foden. So yeah, it's one of those things. It's a little bit annoying, but I've got enough transfers now because I've got Foden rather than because Foden was going to come in 33 for me. I've kind of got a transfer spare that I didn't have already. So it kind of should even itself out. I shouldn't need to take any hits for the next little while. But yeah, definitely this week, I think I'll just roll it, see what happens. And in general, it feels like one of those weeks where you just roll it and see what happens, because the short turnaround, because of the unpredictability at the moment, all of these things do seem to kind of club together to kind of feel like that's kind of the way to go. 32, when we get to it, initial plans are to chuck Gabriel out for a Forest defender, probably Milenkovic or Murillo, and Foden will probably go for another. For 32, for Asensio maybe. If I trust that he's going to play against Southampton when they've got 2 games against PSG, either side. I mean,
figure out based on who plays the first load against PSG.
That's literally it.
Yeah.
If not, it's Enzo Fernandez, isn't it? Chelsea.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what I'll do. But yeah, we'll speak about that again when we come back together next Tuesday. Come on, Cole Palmer. That's the only thing I can possibly say at this moment.
Yeah, Cole, please. We're really rooting for you tomorrow. On behalf of all of us associated with who got the assist, which is just 2 of us, to be fair, but the whole team are rooting for you. The only positive news that I can take by the end of this pod is Salah didn't crush me, so it's not as bad as it could have been. For those of you who were sympathizing, any of you who were hoping for me to get crushed, I am sorry, but it's still been pretty bad. Fingers crossed for tomorrow. And of course, we'll be back next week to get set up for game week 32, which will be the bench boost, I believe, for both of us. So very exciting times. Thank you all so much, as always, for listening, especially if you listen live today during all of the matches. That's a big well done from you, and a big thank you from both of us. We know how important it is to watch those matches, so thank you. In the meantime, we have been Who Got the Assist. You can find us on Blue Sky at WGTA, or myself at FPL Pricey, WGTA_FPL, or FPL Pricey on Twitter, X, and Instagram Threads. It's WGTA.FPL or FPL Pricey on there as well. If you did enjoy the pod, we'd really appreciate if you gave us a follow on those social channels, but also gave the pod a 5-star rating wherever you're listening. And of course, leaving a like and hitting subscribe on YouTube would be greatly appreciated as well.
Thank you very much. I think we're close to, or I've just close to 2K, so please do that. Don't know what that means on YouTube, so I didn't really watch YouTube very much. Hey, I mean, fair enough. Thanks for listening and watching. Hope we assist you yet again with these lightning turnarounds. We'll be back at our usual slot next time. My last pod being 35. That will be Sam. Oh, God, I'm getting old. And let's hope Cole Palmer can relocate his shooting boots tomorrow, eh? See you next Tuesday.
Oh, it's a goal. Who got the assist? Who got the assist?